I'll be presenting Paul Killebrew's debut collection, Flowers. The three poems I have selected I have structured to move from the most concrete imagery and the most loosely narrative thread to the most abstract. The first poem, The Sweaty Intimacy of Creatures Locked in Combat. Look out the window to your left. Run to catch the bus. Azaleas darken under clouds. Are we getting married? Nothing brings the bricks into relief against the bare requirements of moving and feeling annoyed, about moving, running parallel along the baseline and vanishing in the engaged citizenry in the distance. A nice caption to fill the page. You and I in near ubiquity. Everything that I am capable of for 15 seconds distilled. White to yellow to orange and colder as it goes. The meeting of colors. A perfectly clear explanation of what it fails to account for. How tired I got looking at one page after another, barely noticing the accumulation of plot through the endless descriptions of interiors, riding along ever so delicate accomplishments in grammar, endless ethics and the crime of over-seriousness. The red dots outside are moving in a pattern. The second poem is John fucking ASHBERY. For just a moment of gloss, John ASHBERY is a Pulitzer Prize winning poet who used to write and still writes very avant-garde abstract work. Shape of a window on the floor, distant typing, the horrible pliancy of the afternoon. At the office, I recognize normalcy and the God who walks through our hallways of anger. It makes me want to leave it all behind like Iowa after the caucus. Yes, but then it's Tuesday, fucking Tuesday. A chair and a truck splashing into a lake in the middle of whack. But they can all come back and mean something together. Unlike the logical palindrome, no more limitations. The window was so clean I wanted to lick it. That which hasn't moved is finally moving. The coffee spills into a snowbank and sizzles down to frozen grass. Expand, extend. Am I the star of this movie? I'm always deferring to coffee and its sense of urgency. I didn't have arms, so I hugged with my legs. I wanted this to be over before I could walk. Love, broken floorboards tearing down into the absence of celebration. It's never been easily in my shirt pocket and still insist on showing me arms. Unproud and desperate. You, scattered messages on the desk and a trumpet of shadows. I only ask that you find something green and solid to put across my neck in advance of the day's bright lines and knots. What if history remembers today as the one when the internet began to seem quaint? Everything turns into liking. Sometimes when I'm only a sense of myself, I answer the phone and I just breathe. The soul coagulates behind the eyes, and I think not of the self and its dissolution to the market, a correspondent to looking from one to all, that corrupts our delineation from air, green countertop with ashtray, resignation to arbitrary breakfast, and suddenly the knowledge that no one can stop me. I wasn't scared or upset. Incredible. Not asked to be good or bad or even helpful. I went on smiling my dumb butt grin, cracking grace across my legs. I could stand on anything. Religion, a little baby, a sense of limitations. I don't believe in this. The window on the floor and the absence. Water lilies, water lilies, water lilies. Abstraction is an attempt to remove the assignable, but so are most hangovers. If you're ever bored, don't come talk to me. Meaning is always happening. If you don't believe it, it's over. It'll be Tuesday now and forever. Lonely, but for the cars and colors and generous doorways growing light in the morning. I know everything. The day's welcoming empire of moments inside me, losing my way inside it, the bottle in my chest filling. I still believe in hearing this on top of me and isn't leaving you. Can't. An empty shirt flopping down the street. I saw the colors bounce into your face, and that wasn't enough. I know. There are other colors to which this spectacle lends. Depth and clarity, those that fill your pants with unexpected heat, and those that pound a fist into your skull for trying, and those without hair getting restless under a climate of disinterest, and those your own body couldn't be rid of, and those you wrapped around with squelching normalcy just to leave terrible messages that only say, hello, I'm not any of them and not enough. The day has all this dumb fuck intensity, and I am swallowing my own spit. Light rushes over my head, into me, becomes something of myself I don't even own. Trees filling themselves with flowers, a parked car, normalcy deepening in the afternoon. With all of the weirdness he brings to this life, James Tate has called John ASHBERY the people's poet, as if the people were the poet's poem, and I guess sometimes they are. Winter air turned calmer, awaiting him. The idea of his body grew as the faces around him changed in their drift from the norm. They came to him like cars into a tunnel and claimed nothing more than the air they cut through. When they were gone, he was left with a sense of drift that overwhelms and replaces the faces that gave it rise. How was he never frantic explaining it? His was an implication, divorced from its originating content, present only to be felt without designation. You can't see their mouths when they speak of these things. You can't thread through their eyes and pray. You'll fray. The final poem has no title, but in the table of contents it's referred to as The Bedsheets Tumble. The bedsheets tumble, thirsty in my knees. Like God is snowing, wait please, paper sack on a stepladder. So this collection is 33 poems. There are no breaks. There are no section headings. There are no sections within it. It is just one poem after the other, each stacked on top. Almost all the poems are in free verse. Some are split into strophes, some are not. And I think this is all really important because I think that how this has been collected as a collection emphasizes to me what's most strong and most beautiful about Killebrew's work here, which are his themes. The themes that I find to be the most prevalent and the strongest are this idea of the mundane life existing. It's the external world. It's where we go, we work, we go to the office, we go to the cafe, whatever we do. It's these concrete elements of life. And then there's this abstract life, this internal life, what we experience while all the rest is going on. And how I think that this plays together with the structure is that, and I'll talk about this as I go throughout, there's this sense of this mundane world, this everyday world that just builds in each of Killebrew's poems. This idea that everything is becoming background. And by stacking everything without any breaks, it's like you're being part of a constant barrage of the mundane and the ordinary, going to the office. We see that in the Sweaty Intimacy, which opens with lines 1 and 2. Look out the windows to your left, run to catch the bus. That's line 1. Line 2, azaleas darken under clouds. We get this image of being on the bus, seeing these flowers. This is ordinary life. I want to, before I talk completely about theme, I do want to briefly touch on a huge strength of Killebrew's work. And I think that is that he always starts out concretely, and then he moves to these more abstract thoughts. So let's go back to the Sweaty Intimacy. Lines 1 and 2, I just read the opening of how that opens. After line 2 says, azaleas darken under clouds, the next sentence is, are we getting married? So it's like, boom, we instantly realize that there is this ordinary world existing in the first 3 sentences. And then all of a sudden we're going to jump to this internal dialogue, this internal life, this abstract world that exists within us, while the rest of it's going on outside. But what he does so strong is we buy it because we go into it so smoothly through real things. We see this in John fucking ASHBERY. Line 1, shape of a window on the floor, distant typing. So you get this sense of you're maybe in an office. Line 3, at the office. I recognize normalcy. So instantly, you know where you are. So that when you get to later lines in the poem, like 38 and 39, the window on the floor and the absence, water lilies, water lilies, water lilies. You begin to understand that there's a theme building, that we're going to begin concrete and we're going to go abstract. We're going to tap into this internal sense of a dialogue, a life, an emotion, a sense of feelings that are not documented in this world that we live in and that we work in. We also see that in The Bedsheets Tumble. We instantly open with something very tangible. Line 1, the bedsheets tumble. We move to something metaphorical, thirsty in my knees. And then by line 3, like God is snowing. So it's a progression. There's this very concrete image of the bedsheets tumbling. Line 2, thirsty in my knees, seems to represent getting up, being part of the world, going out, working. And in line 3, like God is snowing. What is that? What does that mean? Where is that coming from? And I think that what Killebrew has done here is he has constructed these beautiful worlds that are normal and abstract, and he is showing us that there is a dichotomy here between the tragedy of the mundane and the beauty of the mundane. The tragedy of the mundane is that so much is lost, right? We end up losing so many of the details of the world around us. Let's go to John fucking ASHBERY. And John fucking ASHBERY, line 23 through 25. What if history remembers today as the one when the internet began to seem quaint, everything turns into liking? Here there's, I think, an epic sense of sadness. It's this idea that what is huge, the internet, this huge man-made thing that connects us all, that is endless, inside of this person is beginning to feel small. It's beginning to feel quaint. It's something that's going to turn just into liking. I think we also see this sadness in lines 34 through 36. I wasn't scared or upset. Incredible, not asked to be good or bad or even helpful. I went on smiling my dumb butt grin, cracking grace across my legs. You hear the lap smack. I find this so sad because it's this idea that you're just there. You're not expected to be great. You're not expected to be bad. There's nothing expected of you. And so much is lost here. I think we see this more concretely, this concept of the tragedy of normalcy in the sweaty intimacy with line 3. Nothing brings the bricks into relief. Nothing stands out. Lines 15 through 16 of the same poem. Endless ethics and the crime of over-seriousness, the red dots outside are moving in a pattern. So you've got all this over-seriousness, all this effort placed into this external world of these concrete elements, and we notice none of it. And that, though, makes way, in a way, the tragedy of that, the tragedy of what's lost, makes way for this beautiful inner life that is just stunningly tapped into. I want to go back to John fucking ASHBERY to talk about this idea of the inner life coming out as a great sense of beauty. If you go to lines 40 through 44, he says, abstraction is an attempt to remove the assignable, but so are most hangovers. If ever you're bored, don't come talk to me. Meaning is always happening. If you don't believe it, it's over. I think that section that I just read, not only does it apply to John fucking ASHBERY, but it applies to the sweaty intimacy, and it also applies to the bedsheets tumble. If everything has meaning, then lines 3 in the bedsheets tumble like God is snowing. And even the final 2 lines, wait please, paper sack on a stepladder. There is meaning there even if you don't see it. In that abstraction, in the breaking down of these ideas, even when they're not necessarily narrative or they're not literal, there is meaning there. For me, I read that and I'm filled with emotion. I think to myself, there's a sense of sadness, of something being left behind. The idea of a paper sack being left on a stepladder. Is it a packed lunch? Is it an empty bag? And just wait, please. The pause where the comma is there in lines 4 and 5. There's deep meaning. And I think that we just see this throughout the entire work, that there are these moments of abstraction. You don't always know what they mean, but they do certainly mean something. His discussion of John ASHBERY, who is this famous poet, when he says in line 67, as if the people were the poet's poem, and I guess sometimes they are, and bleeds over into line 68. And then he ends with, in line 76 and 77, his was an implication divorced from its originating content, present only to be felt without designation. I think what is so sad and beautiful and haunting there is this idea that through all of this abstraction, we gain all of this beauty for ourselves. And, John ASHBERY can create these beautiful poems that can be read, but so much is lost in the normal parts of the life. So much bleeds into the red dots that we talk about in sweaty intimacy. And so it's like the idea that something is gained by so much being lost, so much being not discovered. What I took away from this collection is start concrete, ground the reader, and then you can really go at it. You can break into the idea of wanting to lick a window, as we see in John fucking ASHBERY in line 11. So I think that everyone should read this. I thought it was a really great collection. I wish I could talk about it more. The poems are a little long, and so you're limited. But thank you for listening. Go out and read these beautiful poems.